So let's go ahead and get started. We'll start with the first question from Ryan Kelp here.
So what have you thought about Paige's career so far and how it's unfolded?
Paige is developed into a really complete high-level player, and how she goes about her business every day is something I really admire, and has been a really good role model for the players, especially the new players in the program. She's a quiet leader, but she's, in my mind, she's exactly what a student athlete should personify. I mean, she is just so calm and level-headed, focused on the task at hand, driven to be as best as she can. And so, I couldn't, have a better person to have a member of our team and someone who's developed into a terrific player.
And what have you thought of just about how she's overcome a lot during her career? I know she had that injury. This year with COVID, last year you guys had a lot of injuries as a team, and she really had to step up. So what do you think about just the way she's handled all that?
So is that in relation to Paige in terms of stepping up? Yeah. It's been difficult for everybody. Paige is, at the very core of her, is based in a strong spiritual side of her and her family. Very strong family person. And despite the fact that things change so dramatically for everybody, because she's so rooted and her foundation is within her Christianity and her spiritualness and her family, the transition, I don't think, was as tough as it might have been for other people. I mean, she's really it's been good for her to be at home. She loves being with her family. I also think she enjoys being here, out of the weather up in Oregon this time of year. But again, just because of just the kind of person she is and how she was raised, it transcends into the court. And so she's really been someone I'll miss once she, ends up finishing her career here.
Next question is Rich Herrera.
Thank you so much, Dave. Nice seeing you again. Let's talk about you for just a little bit. You've been doing this for a long time. What's changed over the years, the game of volleyball, and what have you learned that you wish you would have known when you got started way back when?
Well, there's the world continues to change, and it never stops changing, and things were a lot different back in 1992 than they are here in 2021. And from the type of players that you recruit and kind of where the background they're coming from, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, what's politically correct and what's not politically correct, what you can say and communicate to your players. I think the biggest changes that I've had to experience have been from a recruiting standpoint. It's been a different level of recruiting from the time I was here in 1992. The sport of volleyball, like a lot of youth athletics, a lot of youth sports, is different. The recruiting component has become a lot more complicated because of the youth clubs and the parental involvement that goes with it, the expectations that go with receiving a scholarship. The kids themselves, I'd say, have changed only because the way they've been raised and the parental upbringing has changed. And so that's required the coaches to change. The players aren't going to change. The coaches have to change. And if you don't make those changes, you're not going to be around. I mean, that's the reality of it. I mean, you see that through the last 10 years of coaches being let go because of maybe making bad decisions. And, but it's an ever-changing landscape. And if you're not willing to embrace those changes, then you're not going to be around for very long.
So you and I go back to the very beginning of your career when I watched you first walk on as a head coach at Cal State Bakersfield. What's the biggest lesson that you've learned from there to coming to the U of A and all the success that you had that you wish you would have known when you got started?
I mean, I forget what the saying is, that the youth is wasted on the young, and it's It's unfortunate that where I am right now as a coach, in terms of how I look at things and my philosophy of coaching and how I communicate with the players and my expectation of the players. Now, I didn't have that same perspective and the same knowledge when I was in Bakersfield. I was explaining to the players today that when I got hired here in 1992, I was young. I was 32 years old. Every single day I was scrambling. Wasn't sure what I was saying was right. I wasn't sure if the system I was using was right. And the Cal State Bakersfield is very similar to that. You're just learning on the fly. I was 27 years old when I became the head coach there at Cal State Bakersfield. And despite the fact they had a lot of success, it was easier to have success there and earlier on in my career here in 1992 than it is now. It's just the level of competition is greater now. What it requires to be successful at the top level, the top 25 level, is different and a lot more difficult than it was back in 1992.
One last thing. What's the reasonable expectation for the Wildcats this year as far as volleyball goes in your mind?
Well, our goals are to try to finish in the upper half of the conference and to make the NCAA playoffs. I'm not sure if that's possible, but that's something that I think is attainable and reachable for us. I think it's we're going to start 4 freshmen and 2 sophomores and 2 seniors. So we're really young, and I see that every single day that we practice, and the players have bought in, and they're really good to coach. But there's a part of what you don't know, you don't know, and that's kind of where they are. I mean, life becomes very real for us in a volleyball sense this weekend. We're playing the number 1 team that's been, preseason ranked number 1 in the conference, and Utah was the Final Four team last year. And so they're going to be, obviously a formidable opponent on Friday and Sunday for my young squad. And so, the expectations, we just want to try to get better every single week. I know that's such a normal and canned answer for coaches, but that's really kind of what fits.
Thank you so much. Good luck this year.
Thank you.
We'll go to PJ next.
Sure. Getting back to Paige, when you started recruiting her, what did you see in her that made you think she's going to fit your program and she's going to be great? And did you see that right up front, or has she surpassed all your expectations?
It's interesting about Paige's recruitment is that her club coach ended up calling us, and she wasn't on my radar when we started recruiting her. I think it was her junior year or end of her sophomore year, and the club coach, who I really didn't know very well, called me and says, "Dave, I have this player for you." And I said, and it's not an uncommon call by club coaches trying to talk their players up. So you kind of take it with a grain of salt. And the position that Paige plays is the 6 rotation outside hitter, which requires such an overall skill set that is really demanding and very hard to come by as a young player. And so she's been in line, like when Maddie Keenan was here, it was Kendra Dahlke was going to take over for Kendra Dahlke, for her. And then we ended up getting Clay Mao. And so Clay Mao ended up taking over for Maddie, and then Kendra Dahlke was in line for her. And now when Kendra was there, it was Paige Whipple's turn. It's kind of handing the baton off to the next person that has developed that skill set. Now, when we were recruiting Paige, the question was Paige going to be able to develop the skill set that was required to be the person and to be able to handle all the responsibilities that we were looking for her to handle? So she started as a freshman and with Kendra. And so that really allowed her to develop into the player and the person that we see today. And when we were recruiting her, Greg Whitus was the one. I can remember this discussion and this conversation distinctly. He was at the tournament and we needed to pull the trigger on it. We were going to either offer or we were going to walk away. And I said, Greg, you got to make the call. You're there. I'm not there. Is she going to be good enough? Is she going to be skilled enough to be able to play the role that we want her to play? And Greg did not want to make that call. okay, Dave, I don't want to make that call. And I said, I don't care what you want. You got to make the decision. And so we ended up, he ended up saying, okay, I'm making it. We're going to take her. And I said, okay, great. I said, let's extend the offer. And so I'm glad that we did. I mean, again, she's just been just a terrific role model for players. And again, just one of the best people that I've ever been around and associated with in the program.
Go ahead, Kim. Oh, PJ, did you have a follow-up?
If you go ahead, PJ, and then I'll go.
Okay, and I was just going to follow up a little on that and was wondering, as she comes in as a freshman, are you, and she's starting with Kendra like that, are you thinking, yeah, we made the right decision and she's the next one in line and she's going to be great?
Right. I'm talking about Paige here. Is that?
Yeah, Paige. Yeah, Paige.
So anytime you ask a freshman to step into the role that Paige had to step in, I mean, that's a tall order. I mean, Maddie Keenan had to do that. Kendra did not do that until her sophomore year. We were hoping that Kendra was going to do it. And then Paige, was thrust in the fire. And if you talk to Paige, which I know she's coming in here after I am finished, but she can tell you how scared she was. I mean, it's really a daunting task to ask a freshman to play the role that she played for us her freshman year. And, and unlike, now that I know Paige and how she handled it is, you kind of expect what you get from her. And it's not surprised that she was able to handle it as well as she did, with the calm and composure that she shows all the time. At the time though, when I didn't know her that well, I'm like, God, she's really kind of handling this pretty well. But I've never looked back on that. I mean, she's been a solid, 4-year starter for us. And she's got a little bit of a back issue right now. She's kind of nicked up, but I think she'll be fine for this weekend. We just got to manage a little bit.
And then go ahead, Kim.
All right. I want to turn a little bit to Utah, Dave. Not a lot of changes, but some important changes. What are your assessment of what you're going to face this weekend? What's it going to be like having to go back to back against them? Just a breakdown of the team.
Well, I like having to go back to back. In fact, if it was my druthers, I'd rather play teams back to back than play Colorado and then go on the road and have to play Utah, something like that. I like the opportunity to make the adjustments that we're going to need to make from one night to the next. But Utah, they're old and they're extremely athletic and they're super talented. I mean, those are all ingredients you need to be a Final Four level team. They have enough talent and good enough talent to be a Final Four level team. They got one of the best players in the country, certainly one of the best players in our conference with Danny Drews. They have an opposite that's number 4. That's terrific. That's 6'3" or 6'4". And they're both left-handed kids and, lefties. My daughter's a lefty. Lefties are just different. I mean, they're harder to read. They're harder to communicate. They're harder to do everything. I mean, if they're anything like my daughter, it's they're just wired differently. And to defend those guys is different because of the angles that they can hit the ball from are just different. And you're just not used to, defending those kind of players. So, they have a terrific setter who I believe is going to be, I think she's a junior now, and middle. They lost their one middle. So that'll be a loss for them, but I'm sure that she's got somebody in the pipeline, Beth does, that's going to be able to take over for that particular player. And but they're going to be good, especially at home.
Anything else for Coach Rubio? Oh, go ahead. Oh, we got 2 more. Okay, PJ.
What are the keys for you against Utah?
Well, if we're gonna compete with these guys, all right, we're gonna have to our swing percentage is going to have to be 90%. And the swing percentage means that we're setting a ball and our hitters are getting up and hitting it at least 90% of the time, whether it's in serve receive or whether it's in transition. If we're giving them free balls and down balls, it's going to be lights out for the Cats quickly. All right. So we got to serve tough. All right. We're going to have to get them out of system. And even when they're out of system, it's going to be tough to defend because our hitters are so good. So for me, we're going to have to be terrific in our offense. It's going to be a race to 25. All right. We're probably not going to stop them very often at the net. So we're just going to have to side out and score points like crazy. And if we're not going to do that, if we're going to, kind of give them down balls and free balls, it's going to be a quick contest. And hopefully we'll, continue to get better. The kids will fight and they'll try hard. We're just going to be young and trying to, compete against a team that's got a lot more experience than we have.
And we'll finish up here. Last question, Ryan.
I just have one last question about Paige. What makes her skill set different from some of the other hitters that you've had?
If I'm trying to think of an analogy here, if you have in basketball, they talk about two-way players, right? You have an offensive player and a defensive player, and they're able to do both at an extremely high level. Well, in the position that she plays, Paige has got to be a great server, a great defender, a great passer, big enough and strong enough at the net to be able to score and to be proficient in all of those skills. As a libero, for example, you just have to be a good passer and a good defender and a good server. All right. So you multiply that by two, and now that's what you get with the left. And so that's why it's so hard to find an outside hitter to be able to do that. And if you don't have a 6 rotation left, which is what we call them, if you don't have a 6 rotation left, then you're not going to have a lot of success in the league. And the hardest thing is finding someone. You can find someone that's small enough to be able to do the back row skills, but can you find someone that's big enough that score in the front row and hang in the front row with the big guys, and then be skilled enough in the back row to be able to play like a libero? And that's where, when you have a player like Paige who's been able to do it for so long, then they're a rare quality. So we're always trying to develop a player. Jalen Hodge, Sophia Maldonado are the two that are in the program right now. Simone Overbeck, those guys we're really trying to develop into 6 rotation players.
Thanks, Coach Rubio.
All right. Thanks, you guys. I appreciate it. Have a good weekend.
Go ahead, Ryan.
The first question I just want to ask is this your last go around, or have you thought about taking advantage of the extra year and coming back next season?
At this point, no official decision by me has been made. I'm really kind of just taking it one day at a time. There's a lot of factors that go into if I were to stay a 5th year in terms of education, and just there's a lot of things that go into it. So kind of leaning one way, but nothing official has been made by me. So I'm just kind of going to see how this season goes. And if I feel good enough to move forward and take that extra year, then I will. But we'll just go on one day at a time.
And what have you just kind of thought about your career here? I mean, if you look at all the things that you've had to overcome, I know you had the umbilical hernia injury. You've had, this now with COVID. Last year, your team had a lot of injuries. As a freshman, you had a really big role, which isn't that easy to do. I mean, what have you just kind of thought about your career and how it's unfolded compared to how you expected?
Yeah, I have made huge growth as a person in my 4 years, volleyball aside, but because of all the things that I've experienced in my time as a volleyball player, battling injuries, coming back from a surgery, and then going into my senior year, having it look so different than a normal senior pictures their final year looking like. So, I mean, just going from year to year, I've seen huge growth in myself just because each year has been completely different and brought completely different challenges. But I'm really proud of myself looking back as a freshman coming in, kind of thought I knew what to expect. But once I was thrown right into the mix of starting and playing a big role right away, I realized that I really didn't know kind of what all it entailed to be a volleyball player in the Pac-12 from, a day-to-day basis. And so I'm just really proud of the growth that I've seen in myself, not only as a volleyball player, but just especially as just my confidence as a person.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in what way have you grown as a person?
I think before I placed a lot of value on who I was as an athlete. And I think going through college, I realized that at some point athletics ends. And I'm so much more than that. And I think that that's the biggest thing that I've taken away from these 4 years is it's been incredible. And I've experienced things that I never imagined experiencing. And it's been the best experience of my life, but there is life after volleyball. And I really had to kind of realize that I'm a human. I'm not just an athlete. And so that's probably the biggest area that I've grown.
And what do you envision as life after volleyball for you?
I'm not totally sure. I'm considering going into sports ministry, and that's just a way that I see myself serving athletes that come after me, and helping athletes develop the same mindset that I have, that you're worth so much more than who you are as an athlete. And yeah, competition is fun and athletics is exciting, but there's so much more to who we are as individuals than just who we are, or than just what we do.
Next up is PJ.
Hi, Paige. When you came in as a freshman and you're starting and you're going through all these things that you've gone through your career, now you're here as a senior and you're getting this preseason accolade. How does that feel?
It feels really cool. Every athlete that plays in any conference, the goal is to be recognized as one of the top players in the conference. And I think coming in, I had really unrealistic expectations, I think, of like where I was at as an athlete and like what I was going to be recognized as. And as I've gone through my 4 years, I realized that it's so much less about the recognition that you receive and more about what you're contributing to the team, because it is a team sport. And so I think to get here now to my 4th year and be recognized as that, I've been proud of myself all 4 years. And I think that the honor is really, really cool. But I think that there's so much more to what I add to the team, just besides receiving that honor. So it's definitely cool though.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Dave kind of told us the backstory of your recruitment and how you got to Arizona. From your perspective, I mean, how did you get here?
Yeah, so I had made a list of, potential schools that I wanted to go to kind of early in my freshman year, once I had decided that I wanted to play volleyball in college, and that I had several people tell me that they thought I could do it at a high level. And so I started setting those goals of where I wanted to go pretty high. And there was a lot of Pac-12 schools that I was definitely interested in attending, but U of A wasn't really high up on that list. I was pretty sure at freshman and sophomore age that I wanted to stay a lot closer to home and maybe play at Oregon or Oregon State. And then I remember, I think I was in Las Vegas my sophomore year, and Greg had gone and talked to my club coach, and I was like, oh, okay, like Arizona's interested, like that's really cool. And they showed a lot of interest in me throughout my sophomore club season. And I visited here May of my sophomore year, and that was really when they offered me and told me that they saw me playing a huge role kind of right away. And so that was really exciting for me, because not only was it, my dream to play in the Pac-12, but also they're saying that they could see me contributing right away. And so that was really inviting to me. Immediately, I connected well with the coaching staff. Dave, Greg, and Rita all seemed like great people to play for. And I was really excited just about the environment that the U of A has. When I visited, school was actually out, so there was no students on campus. There was not even anyone on the volleyball team on campus. I think I ran into one girl who had graduated, so I wasn't even going to play with her at all. So it was a different visit for me, because a lot of people get that experience of being around the team or going to a game, but I was here with just the coaches, and not even a single student was really on campus. And so after a couple months, I really felt that Arizona was the place that I was going to be most successful, and that I was going to be able to thrive in, not only in volleyball, but just in, the state. It's much sunnier and much more happy, I guess, because of the weather than Oregon, where I grew up. And so, it's been a great place for me.
And did you know about the history that this program has had of developing hitters?
Yeah, Dave had talked a lot about, because a couple years before I came in, I think when they were recruiting me, actually, Maddie Kingdon was currently a junior or senior on the team, and I had watched her play. And Dave had talked a lot about how they run, or we as a team run a lot of our offense through the outsides, and he kind of made it known that outside hitters are who kind of gets the job done for his team and his program. And so that was exciting for me because I knew that obviously that's the position I play. And eventually, whether it happens right away, I'm going to be able to hopefully step into that role. And so I was kind of prepared for that coming in. And then Kalei Mao was the next one. She graduated right before I came in. And then I saw Kendra as she, went through her freshman and sophomore year. And then I came in when she was a junior. And so I kind of was able to see the progression of those people, those three specifically before me.
And when we talked to you on Saturday, you said you don't get nervous before matches anymore. Was there a point where has that always been the thing for you, or is there a certain point where that became the norm, where it's game day and you're you know what to expect and you're very calm?
Yeah, I think it was probably right about the time we started conference last year. Once our team kind of started to break down a little because of injuries, and we really had that core group of 8 or 9 people that were playing, and that was really the only options physically that we had. I think that was a big moment for a lot of us that were playing, because we realized, like, okay, if I play bad, there's no one to sub me out. If I make an error, there's no one to replace me with. And it kind of gave us confidence, and me specifically gave me confidence. Like, at this point, like, our team looks like a bunch of misfits, and no one expects us to win a game in this conference. But, like, I'm going to do what I can to contribute to the team. And I know that my teammates are going to do what they can to contribute to the team. And so I think that, like, weirdness of having weird lineups and liberos playing outside and that whole thing really helped me to, like, step into a more confident role of who I am and what I contribute to the team, because I knew that all of my teammates around me also felt the same confidence.
And what are you hoping to get out of your senior, if this is your last season, your senior season?
I think this year my goal, obviously I want to be successful. I want to, be one of the top players in the conference. But I think moving forward, if this is my last year, I just want to be a good leader and show the young team what it takes, because I have been here for 4 years, and that in this program is kind of a big deal, because we've seen a lot of people, especially in my time, transfer out. And so to be kind of the last one standing in my class in the 4 years playing, I just want to show the younger players, like, that it's possible, first of all, and that it takes a lot of hard work. And I've tried to, tell stories of my freshman year. If, a freshman is feeling down or feeling confused or frustrated, I just try to make it known that, hey, I was in that exact same spot. And it might look like I know what I'm doing now, but when I was in your spot, I had no idea what I was doing. And so just trying to give them that confidence that as they move forward in the program, things do get easier. The game does slow down. You do gain confidence. So yeah, that's just the biggest thing, regardless of how the season goes, wins or losses, how well I do or don't do. I just want to show them that, they have what it takes and they're here for a reason, and it will come with time.
Kim, did you?
Yeah, I did.
Go ahead.
Paige, what do you take most from playing for Dave for 4 years? What do you learn, either off the court, on the court, however you want to take that?
Dave is a very technical coach, and he's very specific about how he likes the game played. And that wasn't something that I had in my coaches in the past. A lot of coaches that I had played for, technique was emphasized, but a lot of it was go out and play and be competitive. And, like, that was kind of the encouragement. But Dave does a really good job of being specific in developing players to be fundamentally sound. And so that was just a huge adjustment for me, because now he didn't care so much about whether I, passed a 3. he cared what my feet looked like. I could shank a ball, but if my feet were wrong, that was what the problem was. And so that was a huge adjustment for me coming in. But the nice thing about that is that you always know, once you get to my age and my 4 years playing for Dave, I see someone do something and I know what Dave is going to say to them before he even says it, because he's so routine in how he wants things done and how the fundamentals should be. And I think that that is a good thing because it builds structure in players, and players are able to, once they learn those fundamentals and they're able to play in the way that Dave is coaching them to play, then they get that down and they're free to, play freely, and they don't have to think so much about what they're doing technique wise. And so that was a big adjustment for me coming in. But I think looking back, it helped me build confidence in the fundamentals in every aspect of my game. Whereas to now, I can do things without even thinking about it.
And we'll finish up here. Last question for PJ.
Okay. What does it feel like to be, the last time someone was honored like this was 2016, I think Danny said. And you're sort of continuing on this tradition now. What does it feel like for you to be placed in sort of the same breath from now on as like those types of players?
It means the world to me. I am someone who, leads in a quiet way and works hard in a quiet way. And I think that in the last 4 years, I've really put my nose down and worked as hard as I possibly could to get to this point. And so it's really cool to be, named in the same category as some of the best players to ever play volleyball. And so I'm really honored, and yeah, it's pretty cool.
All right, great. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Paige. And we are going to probably do these routinely on Wednesdays at 11, but I will let everybody know. And thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Have a great trip, Paige.
Thanks.
Thank you.